Hi everyone, it's Margaret here with 60andMe, and I hope that you're doing well today. Thank you so much for joining here and watching our videos on YouTube. I've got a topic today that is kind of reflective and a continuation of the videos that I did about my life story. And I want to thank you all, by the way, so much for the comments and the love and just the sensitivity around the things that I shared. And yes, some of them were hard, and I was actually, after it all, though, I was very happy that I'd done it, and I appreciate your support. But I was thinking about the generations that shaped me, and really the generations that shaped us as a demographic. I mean, the boomer generation was just, we've been through 7 decades or 6 decades, most of us, and, you can look back and say there's some clearly defined things that happened in those definitions. I think that the first one, I just banged my table there. The first one is the 60s. I mean, assuming that we were born like in the 50s or 40s, the 60s was one of the defining chapters. And for me, for example, I saw the Beatles in the 60s. I mean, I was actually, friends with someone whose father worked for the newspaper and was able to get tickets for us. And we were just, it was unbelievable. But it was the season of harmony and peace and love and acceptance, and we were, challenging the stereotypes and challenging lifestyles, and rock and roll was a big deal. Music and just having fun. That was our decade. And the 60s. Well, I went to high school, of course. I think some of you maybe are younger than me. Were not in high school yet, but I graduated during that time. And of course, 62 was, and we had some political crisis. That was where the Cuban Missile Crisis took place, and there was just a lot of very difficult Cold War activities in the 60s. But Betty Friedan was kind of the author of that time, and she wrote The Feminine Mystique. Remember that book, which was challenging our role as housewives and putting us into the workplace. And then we went into the feminist movement of the bra burning episodes, and that's how it went. I'm going to put my light on here. Hopefully it won't be too glaring. Is that too bright? Probably is. I've got a very I'm not sophisticated system here. I do put the light on so you can see my face a little bit better. It was getting a bit dark. Anyway, but we were moving into the 70s with an awareness that we had power, that we were empowered. I think in the 70s we were not political, but we stood up for what we believed in. This was the time where things were developing and we could take a stand. It was during the Vietnam War, and I think Ms. Magazine was founded during that time, Gloria Steinem, and so the whole movement towards equal rights for women in the workplace, and that I guess was kind of my time. I had my first child in 79, so that was kind of for me the beginning of motherhood, and maybe that was for you too. But behind the scenes there was a lot going on in the boomer world in terms of women's rights and gender discrimination, and just finding ways to bring women to the forefront in the world. And as I'm talking now in 2022, where things have gone in a way full circle, and many people would argue that we're losing all the ground that we achieved back in these days. But it is what it is. So the 80s, I think, was a good decade for a lot of people. I was working full time. I had the children. Very happy life in a marriage, and just lots of wonderful things going on. But I think for most people, I think sexual harassment was declared illegal during this period. And, again, women started having a voice. And maybe there was a bit of a focus in the 80s on materialism and having it all, having all this beautiful stuff and accumulating, buying a house. I certainly went through all of that, and maybe you did too. But I think that's the thing about the 80s. There was disco and abundance and glamour and glitz. It was just that kind of... Maybe we had a bit of a higher standard of living. As I'm talking, by the way, can you relate to this? And if you've got comments or things that you'd like to learn about or hear about, I'd be happy to kind of have a conversation, because your experience might have been different than mine. In fact, almost certainly was. But the 90s, well, technology. This is where we could basically join the technology drive and come on board, or we had to give in and be resistant of it. It was everywhere. I was working at Microsoft, so of course I was right in the middle of it. And 1995 was when Windows 95 launched. That was one of my big career headlines, and also and for many people. I mean, the 90s, the technology just exploded. It was the internet revolution, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I mean, right now I'm just so glad for technology. I think that it's made us enabled us to make technology developments and advances in medicine and education. Online learning now. I mean, it's just so incredible to think what technology has done for the world. I really do think that we owe a lot of very creative thinkers, and a lot of very driven business people, men and women. But there were a lot of guys doing cool stuff during then. But women will find their way in the decades after that. But I think the 2020s or the 2000s were a kind of trial by fire for a lot of women. There was a lot of financial crisis. That was the 2008 crash. Do you remember that one? I mean, I lost everything in that crash. I think I mentioned it in my video, and probably a lot of you did too. But I think it put a big strain on a lot of people's finances and mental health, and also family life. Lots of divorce, lots of separation, just people just being a bit lost in the world. And there's that kind of, trial by fire, as I mentioned, that we had to survive, we had to adapt. And we did adapt. And that's the kind of path that we took forward. Our children were leaving home, they were going to college, they were doing their own things. And, we were starting to experience that empty nest toward the end of the 2000s. And then the 2010s appeared. Oh my goodness. Well, that was the reinvention time. I think this is when we decided that we were, when you get older, let's see, 2010, we would have been in our 50s. And I think this was the time when we realized there's more to life than this. We've done so much for so many people all our lives. Now it's time to reinvent me, to be doing the things I love. And as much as I adore my children, I'm going to let them grow. I'm going to let them be. And as much as I love my husband, I've got to find my own self, my own person. And maybe that's when the divorces took place, because you realized you'd been doing things for a while that you weren't that comfortable doing, or that you were just not, it wasn't good for you. So that was the reinvention, where we started new careers, new businesses. We became online. Let me think now. I started 60andMe 2012. So that would be exactly where we were here, the 2010s. It was 2012, and all the way through this decade, I've watched women do amazing things with their lives. And this is what is so exciting about the time that we're living in right now. We've been through the bliss of ignorance in a way in the 60s. We've worked hard politically to get the rights for women. We've moved into times of abundance. We've embraced technology, and now we're reinventing ourselves. And I think the 2010s is that time. Now we've got to the end of 2010 now. We're in the 20s. How would you define it? Well, I can see, certainly by some of the things that are going on in the political world, that we've gone back to the 60s. We've gone back to a world of fear and ambiguity and uncertainty about the future. And I think that we've grown up a lot to sort of think that things are just going to happen, just without effort. I think we see that maybe the focus that we put on others was, had its time, had its place, but now it's time for us. And I think the 20s, in our 60s, and for me 70s, is where I'm going to, I think there's finding that spiritual center, figuring out the purpose and passion. I mean, I've got 60andMe, so I'm so grateful that I've got you in my life, and I hope that maybe it's the same with you, that we are able to help each other here. We can do this. We can get through this transition into the 2022s, and then 30s is the next one. But I don't know. I just have found this whole journey very fascinating, and I think all of us can attach memories and personal stories to the years, and I hope that you found it fascinating and interesting. And if you've got any particular decade that you feel was a time where you thrived, where you loved, where you were happy with life, and maybe you would choose it as your favorite decade, I would love to know. Let's have a conversation. And if you like the video, please like and subscribe. I don't know whether we've reached 200,000 yet. We're very, very close subscribers on YouTube. But maybe by the time this video goes out, we won't quite be there, but we might. And in which case, it's all down to you. Thank you again. So like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and just know that I appreciate you sincerely from the bottom of my heart. And I wish you all very well this decade, 2020, 2022. It's a great year. Take care, everybody.